I noticed you left your last job about a year ago and you haven't worked since. Why is that?
Well, even though I was doing well in my prior role, I found myself feeling just pretty burnt out and not myself. So I decided to take some time to travel and do some self-reflection.
Wow.
There may come a time in your career when you will leave your industry for a bit and try something new, or just take time away from work altogether. And that's okay. But if you have gaps in your resume, you should be prepared to answer questions about them during the interview process. This video is going to highlight some common reasons for a nonlinear or functional resume and how to properly address them when interviewing for a new job. Kylie recently took some time away from work to travel and is now looking to get back into the hospitality industry. Let's listen in.
I noticed you left your last job about a year ago, but you haven't worked since. Why is that?
I just got to a point where I just didn't feel like working anymore and wanted to take some time for myself. And I got to travel, and that was pretty great, but I think I'm ready to get back into the swing of things.
Okay, let's talk about this answer. Gap years are so common now in the age of the Great Resignation, and recognizing that you want to take time away to focus on yourself is never a bad thing. But this answer had two main issues. It's incredibly vague and lacks the certainty that they want to re-enter the workforce. Don't be afraid to lean into your time off, what you learned, and how that's prepared you to come back. Let's see that one again.
I noticed you left your last job about a year ago and you haven't worked since. Why is that?
Even though I was doing well in my prior role, I found myself feeling pretty burnt out and just not myself. So I decided to take some time to travel and do some self-reflection. And that was very helpful because with that space, I was able to determine what was causing me so much stress, and I feel better able to manage it moving forward. And I was so excited to see this position open up, and I'm confident with my skill set from before, as well as what I've learned about myself in the past year, I'll be successful in this role.
That was great. Transparency is key when asked about a gap year, and you shouldn't be ashamed to talk about it with a future employer. This kind of emotional intelligence and self-awareness will make you a stronger candidate because employers want to know they can retain you and that you aren't a flight risk. So when you decide to get back into the workforce, be confident in your decision and express that confidence during your interview.
I know you've been out of the workforce for a bit, so I would just love to hear about why you applied for this position.
Sure. The last few years were great. I was able to devote all my time to raising my child and was always busy looking after him. But now that he's in school, I'm honestly kind of bored. So I thought when I saw the job posting, it matched pretty well with what I used to do. And now that I have the time back, I might as well go back to work.
Let's unpack this one. Parenting is one of the most universal reasons why people leave the workforce. And sometimes it could be years before they return, if they do at all. But if you decide to go back to work after a parenting hiatus, the reason should never be simply that you're bored. You should actively want the job you're interviewing for, not to just fill your schedule, but to reinvest in your career. Let's have Talia do that one again.
I know you've been out of the workforce for a bit, so I would just love to hear about why you applied for this job.
Absolutely. I love the advertising work that I used to do, but I knew I wanted to take some time away from the workforce after having my son. So now that he's in school and I know I have the time back, I'm so excited at the opportunity to get back to doing what I was passionate about and continuing my professional goals. So when I saw the job position, it really piqued my interest. It felt like a natural re-entry for me, given my past work experience, and I can really envision myself having long-term growth in this role.
Great.
Yes! There's so much to like about this response. She addresses both her prior experience in the industry as well as the experience she gained during her time away as good assets for this particular position. And even though experiences earned while taking time off to parent aren't industry specific, they are still valuable nonetheless. This final scenario is a little different. Unlike the first two, which included time away from the workforce altogether, in this scenario, Seth left an industry for another and is now interviewing for a position back in that original industry.
I'm seeing here you worked in sales in a similar position to what we're chatting about today, but then you jumped into event planning. What made you make that change?
First and foremost, I hated what I was doing there. And my boss did not make it any easier. So a friend of mine was telling me about her event planning job, and it sounded really cool. So as soon as a position opened up there, I decided to apply and I got right in.
2 red flags here. 1, never use language like you hated something you used to do as a reason for leaving. And 2, avoid discussing past managers in a negative light. Your talking points should be positive and focus on your personal and professional growth. Now, let's run it back and see that one again.
I'm seeing you worked in a sales position similar to the one we're chatting about today, but then you jumped into event planning. So what made you make that change?
I was in sales for a while, and I had felt that my career was plateauing a little bit and that I wanted to try new things. A friend of mine told me about their event planning job, and it sounded really interesting and like something I could apply my existing skills to. So, waited for a position to open up, applied, got in, been there a year. I've learned a lot.
This is already so much better. Seth identifies a particular reason why he originally left the industry and expressed his interest in trying something new. Not only that, but he draws attention to their growth over the last year in his current job, which should bode well in applying for this new role. Let's see how this one wraps up.
Thank you for sharing that. So I am curious though, after leaving the sales industry, what made you interested in this position? What made you want to come back?
I feel that this last year has taught me that I really like face-to-face time with clients. Event planning has some decent client time, but the majority of the role is logistics and operations. I picked up some really valuable skill sets to that end. But what really excites me about this position in particular is that it's specific to new business, and there's tons of face-to-face time with the clients, which I feel is directly in my wheelhouse. And honestly, where I want to be moving forward with my career.
That was excellent. Seth explains clearly why he wants to come back to this role in his former industry and the transferable skills he learned during his time away. And by ending the answer centered around his career growth, shows he is committed to staying at the company. Remember, it's completely normal for your resume to deviate in direction throughout your career, but it's important to come prepared in the likely event you're asked about it during an interview. Was this video helpful? Make sure to like and subscribe.
And what is self-reflection?
It's where you work on the self to better oneself.
People do that?
Nice. Thank you.